27th November workshop. And at this time, I ask you silence all of your electronic devices, even the people up here.
Gone.
Since we had a malfunction at our last meeting. And if you desire to speak to us this evening, we have some yellow cards outside the door you can fill out and get to the city clerk, and then we'll call you up at the appropriate time. This time I ask you to stand, and we're going to ask our esteemed city clerk to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is a workshop, so we don't sign in, and we'll just make note of the fact that we're missing one city councilman. Councilman Doug Faircloth is ill this evening and couldn't be with us, but we do have a quorum. We'll have a workshop. And does anybody have any objections to what we have on tonight's agenda? I just shared with Teresa that it's a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It could take a while, so we'll look at it as we go along if we have to delay anything or not, because it might be more comprehensive than we thought. But we'll see as we go along. So, having said that, at this time, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on anything that's on our agenda this evening? Anybody in the audience would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing no one, we will move on to the first item on our agenda, which is discussion of the red light cameras. And that's going to be done by our Chief of Police, Chief Taylor.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for this opportunity. This is actually an initiative that I've been kicking around for quite a while now. We've had some discussions over before, and it's the traffic problem is getting much worse. It's not getting better. I believe, Mr. Whitten, you were given some numbers recently. We've investigated, actually written reports on 967 traffic crashes on Ferdon Boulevard this year. Okay, that's not including the additional 500 to 600 that we responded to that were just basic what we call driver exchange crashes, and or people kind of worked it out amongst themselves. We didn't have to write a report on it. So we obviously, I don't have to tell you we got a traffic problem. The red light cameras system could serve a lot of purposes here. Now I have two what I'll call experts in the field here tonight to help me with this presentation and answer any questions you might have. First, I have Peter Paulding, who's a former police chief in Gulf Breeze, Florida, who actually pioneered the red light camera system in Florida, wrote the ordinance, the original ordinance that the state statute was based on, that is now the Mark Waddell Act here in Florida. It's what governs the red light camera systems. There's really not much I can tell you that I didn't put in the proposal, if you read the proposal. I know there's some statistics in there and things like that. Red light cameras save lives. We've had 9 pedestrians hit this year. Now, I can't relate that to red light camera or red light violations, all but one. The one fatality we had this year was a red light violation that ran through the red light and hit 2 motorcycles and killed the passenger on one of them. Okay, that's the one fatality we've had this year. It was a red light violation. If you call your attention to looking at the survey I had done almost 2 years ago, and the traffic has not improved since then. 51 citable violations, and now that's not. Again, there's a lot of ins and outs on the system here. We would. It's not recommended that we really go into the system and doing right turn on reds. Okay, not saying if somebody doesn't turn right on red doing 30 miles an hour that they wouldn't receive a citation. However, but so you knock it down to over a 16-hour period of time, on January 13th and January 16th, 2016, 696 red light violations were observed at 3 intersections along 85 in the city limits of Crestview. Okay, when you adjust all that down and you get it down to 51 that we would actually cite under our red light violation program. And when you extrapolate that out, bottom line is just based on that 16-hour survey, in a year's time, at those three intersections, you have 27,000 plus violations running red lights. Causes crashes. It causes injuries. It costs lives. So what I want to do is to make a kind of have a discussion tonight. I want Mr. Paulding has a PowerPoint presentation he's going to run, and he'll be able to answer any questions on the logistics and the setup. And as far as the equipment and the contractual things like that, I have Alan Quinn, who's the Vice President of Census. These are the people that I had brought in here and to do the survey for us a couple of years ago. And this is how long I've been working on this. And I think we've about got the kinks worked out of it, and we're able to have this discussion now and maybe get a consensus whether or not to proceed with the program. There's a lot of work involved in it. This is really no risk. It doesn't cost us anything to put this together, and it won't cost us anything to get out of it if we decide it's not working for us later on, as long as we meet our contractual our contracts, all right, which we haven't negotiated yet. So. Before I turn it over to Mr. Paulding, do you have any questions of me, real quick?
Gentlemen?
One question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Plunkett.
Chief Lieutenant, you mentioned 16 hours monitoring. Was that each location? And how many officers did it take to monitor that?
None. We didn't have any officers
That's
monitor
what
that.
I
We
was-
set up a camera system. We actually had Census come in and set up camera systems at 3 intersections. Okay, and they conducted surveys over a 16-hour period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hayes.
Chief, is there a statute that they passed in Tallahassee this past year related to this that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of it. The Mark Waddell Act was passed several years ago.
Reason I got an email from the constituent, and they were making reference to that it had been banned, the legislature had banned it in March of 2017. I wasn't aware of that, but, you know, and that it was gonna cost us. That's the message I got. I
Mr.
said,
Hayes, there was a bill that I don't believe it passed.
that's why I was
There's
asking,
a
was there
bill.
anything about that?
There's a proposal that comes up to the legislation. Just about every year, somebody proposes to do away with these things. They lose it every year.
Yeah, the message I got said they had passed, and I couldn't recollect. I said maybe something had taken place I wasn't aware of, and also they made reference to that was going to cost us. I didn't answer them back, even though I could have, but I wouldn't. I wanted to make sure I got the right information before we address anybody on that, so they would have the facts. That's why I'm glad you got the workshop. So some people, in my opinion, are misinformed.
Sure, absolutely.
On
And that's
that.
why I wanted to do this in a workshop setting to know whether we should proceed with this.
I had
Yes,
one
Mr.
question
Holland.
I wanted to ask about the camera. Are you buying off somebody's contract, or do we have to bid
No, we can piggyback off of Gulf Breeze's contract.
what you're gonna buy
Yes,
off
sir.
their contract?
Absolutely. They just renewed their contract a couple months ago.
Now, there is a statute and you're gonna have to comply with that.
Yeah.
Mark Waddell
It's
Act.
gonna be run according to that statute.
I think I identified that in here. 00083, Mark Waddell
0083.
Act, statute number.
316-0083.
Yeah.
What happened was Gus Breeze passed their ordinance. There wasn't a statute, so they did it under home rule power, I think.
Right.
Right.
But now that we've got a statute, the state's preempted, and we're gonna have to follow the statute.
This is a public safety issue. The whole system is designed to be cost neutral, or revenue neutral and cost neutral. I mean, that's where we're going in. This is a public safety issue. This is meant to save lives. And at some point in the future, we're going to see, once if we decide to implement this program, we're going to see significant reduction in our traffic crashes, and just based on statistical data that I provided. So,
I have actually several questions, but I think it would be incumbent upon me to wait till the presentation's done, because I think probably the questions will pertain to those individuals better. So if we could go on with that, I'll save my
Absolutely.
questions until we do
That's where you got the PowerPoint ready?
No, because I didn't know you weren't bringing it on a USB drive, but we're working on it.
In the interim, again, Mr. Paulding, Peter Paulding was a former police chief in Gulf Breeze. He initiated the first red light camera system in the state of Florida. As Mr. Hawley stated, that there was no statute at the time. The statute, it was actually, if you compare the Gulf Breeze ordinance to the statute, it's almost word for word. There's been some modifications over a period of time, the division of the fines and things like that, but this whole system was set up. It's been defended by as I told you in the document here, it's been defended by the Attorney General's office on constitutional issues over 1,000 times. This is a solid system. It's a very solid system, and I don't see any downside to it.
Chief, maybe while we're waiting, maybe you can answer this question.
Sure.
And that is, I don't think I quite understand the difference between a department issuing the citation, or I shouldn't say citation, notification, which then results in $45 coming back to the city, or the county or municipality doing it, and then $75 comes back to the municipality. I don't get the difference in that, why there's a difference.
Well, again, it's a safety issue. I believe the state violation right now is about $260 on running a red light, and
No, I'm talking about a violation under this statute. There are two different divisions of money. Depends who issues the $148 violation. And it says that $45 shall be distributed to the municipality if the infraction was done by, let's see here, by the department, but $75 if it was done by
are you talking about a
a
state
county or
citation?
municipal traffic
Are you
infraction.
talking about a state uniform traffic citation versus?
No. I'm talking about the Mark Wendell
Okay.
Traffic Safety Program, 316.0083.
As Mr. Peter Paulding, I'm not quite.
And the way it's divided up, I don't know why there are two different ways. It's like 3A and 3B.
I think I can address that, Mr. President. I'm Peter Paulding, I'm retired police chief from the city of Gulf Breeze, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. The distinction that you have there is if one is a state-run program, so if the state were to implement red light infraction on a state road that was not covered by a county or like for example I-10, they wouldn't do it, but I mean if that was the location, that's the $45. But any municipality that does it, it's the $158 with $75 going to the municipality.
Okay, but by the same token, then, $158 when they break it out totals up to $158.
Yes,
So how does a company make any money?
Well, the company has to, the vendor that you're referring to, the
Yes, the
vendor
vendor.
providing the red light cameras, they have to engage in a fixed rate contract with the city, and that's negotiated between the city or if it was the state, between the state. And they would have to determine if it was cost feasible for them to do it. The numbers that we have experienced in Gulf Breeze, the vendor's making sufficient money to continue the program with us, and we've been doing it for,
Sufficient money, meaning $75 per ticket?
no, they don't get $75 per ticket. There's actually a prohibition in the Mark Wendell Traffic
No, I'm
Safety
not talking about
Act.
the vendor, I'm talking about the municipality.
Correct.
How do we cover our costs? If we're paying you and a violation is tasked at $158,
Yes, sir.
and all $158 is accounted for,
Yes,
going
sir.
to the state or the municipality.
Correct.
So then we pay you up above and beyond that ticket to be
That's
the
correct.
vendor. So
The-
how's that cost neutral to us?
Well, the city would pay out of the proceeds of the fine,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
The 75
$75 per ticket would
Correct.
have to cover all the expenses that, and so what happens if we're not making $75?
Well, what we
Enough
did,
tickets.
I can tell you what we did in Gulf Breeze. In Gulf Breeze, we negotiated our contract such that if there wasn't sufficient revenue from the violations, that we didn't have to pay the vendor. And the vendor had the option of removing the cameras and ceasing the program, or subsidizing the program on their own until such time as it did pay for itself.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I wasn't quite understanding what you were getting at there.
Yeah, let's go ahead with the presentation, and then I'll hold the
Okay.
rest of my questions and the rest of the gentlemen take it.
Thanks. Oh, there it is, okay. So, one of the reasons that Tony and I began discussing the proposal of a red light camera was a problem that is experienced in the city of Crestview with traffic crashes. I gathered data over the past, a 10-year period from 2005 to 2015 to show that Santa Rosa County has experienced about a 20% increase in crashes, Escambia County 27%, Okaloosa County 53%, so pretty significant increase in crashes in this county. Crestview, 78% increase in Crestview, and then overall for the state of Florida, it's about a 39% increase in traffic crashes in a 10-year period. So I think that the problem statement is pretty adequate to say that there's something needs to be done in Crestview to address the problem with traffic crashes.
Well, except these are not directly related to red light crashes.
No, they're not, sir.
Okay.
However, let me say this. There's numerous studies that suggest a spillover effect from enforcement. If you enforce red light cameras or if you enforce speed, it has a spillover effect to other violations and actually reduces other violations. And we experienced that in the city of Gulf Breeze in the 11 years that we've been doing red light camera enforcement. It's not the only thing that we did to try to control crashes in the city. We tried a number of initiatives, but red light camera enforcement was a part of a comprehensive traffic safety initiative that we put together, and we believe that the whole package is successful and is worthwhile doing. How do I advance this?
Do a right click on the
Oh,
actual
right
page.
click?
Or left
Left click. Okay, help me. I'm right clicking and left clicking. Otherwise, we're just gonna be stuck with this problem.
You just use the arrow.
Okay. Okay, so there's been a dramatic increase in crashes since 2005. Maybe the batteries are a little in the mouse. You've experienced significant growth in the city. You have about 38,000 cars per day. That's your traffic count on Highway 85. In Gulf Breeze, we have about 57,000 cars per day on Highway 98 that goes through our city. And so traffic enforcement and traffic issues were a high priority for our law enforcement and public safety initiatives in the city. And you're actually comparable, close to that. We created a traffic safety task force in 2004 that recommended a number of strategies. One of those strategies was the implementation of technology. Okay, so we've gone beyond where I was just talking about, but I'll just look at this. This is a typical picture of what is received from the red light camera violation. This is a picture of the car behind the stop bar, and what you see here, there's a data bar at the top. The data bar contains information about the date, the time, the location, the speed that the vehicle is traveling, and it also, as you can see in the picture at the top, you can see that the red lights are displayed at this car, and I believe this car is doing 35 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it's only about a foot or two from the stop bar. This car is not going to stop. That activates the camera. There's software in the camera that can detect that this car is not going to stop in time. So it triggers the camera, it takes the first picture. The next picture, there it is. So the car ran the red light. This picture is taken about a second later, and it shows the car is thoroughly in the intersection. So what our personnel do is they look to make sure that the car is behind the stop bar completely, the light is red, the car then proceeded through the stop bar, the light is still red and hasn't turned green, so the car didn't jump the thing, and proceeded on. That's that constitutes a violation. And we can zoom in on the tag. The photograph that you saw, the first photograph, was what the camera takes. We can then zoom in on that and zoom in on the tag on the car. I blocked it out and blurred it because it's a public presentation, and I don't know whose plate this is. But you can see that, you can clearly see, you can make out, for example, that that is a Nissan in the photograph. Now, Tony, I'm hoping this is going to work. Nope, it didn't work. Okay, so I have a video that, in addition to the two pictures, what we call the A shot and the B shot, the before and the after, we also get a 5-second video of the intersection. Unfortunately, it doesn't play on this computer, but it plays very well on the other computers. And that's very helpful too, because that tells us whether or not the car had, a common complaint is that someone forced me through the intersection because they were so close behind me I couldn't stop. And we can actually watch the video to see if in fact that was the case. The next thing that I have is okay. This is a typical violation notice. It gets sent out to the violator. It gets printed out by the police department after the violation is approved by the police department. And it includes the information about the vehicle. It includes the information about the time, the date, and it also includes photographs, so the violator can see it, can see the violation, tells them how they can pay the violation. It also tells them where they can go to review the violation online to see for themselves the video if they wanted to do that. And it also tells them how they can appeal the notice of violation. There are a number of reasons, and also the violator can file what's called an affidavit of defense. For example, if a vehicle were yielding to a right-of-way to an emergency vehicle, if they were in a funeral procession, or if an officer directed them through the traffic light, if they gave the vehicle to someone else and they didn't want to pay the violation, they provide who was driving their car at the time, and that person would receive the violation notice. If they reported their vehicle stolen, or if they received a citation for violating that same red light at the same time. And so they wouldn't get doubly fined. They would either pay the ticket, they would pay the uniform traffic citation that supersedes a notice of violation from the violator. So let's talk about costs. In the program that we had in Gulf Breeze, and I've been talking to the chief about how we implemented it and recommend he does something very similar. The vendor provides all of the equipment and the software at no capital expense to the city. The vendor provides the equipment, they install it, they maintain it, they continue to own it, but the city operates the system using that. The vendor pays for the installation, and then the monthly payment, Mr. President, as you were asking earlier, the payment to the vendor comes out of that $75 portion that the city retains. And the vendor provides all maintenance and updates to their system. They'll also provide the signage that's required. And the city is required to make payments to the Florida Department of Revenue on a weekly basis in electronic format on from the revenues that they've received. So every week, the Florida Department of Revenue would get their $83 out of the money that was received from the fines that were paid. And the police provide the back office operations in this system. The police validate every violation. The vendor screens out obvious exceptions. For example, a car, I've done about 100,000 violations for the city of Gulf Breeze and as a vendor to the city after my retirement. Many people will trigger the camera, as I said before, when they come up to the stop bar. If they roll the car over the stop bar, that triggers the camera. It's based on the location. But that's not a violation. I mean, the car didn't go through the intersection, so that would be accepted out. And there's many violations of that type. Probably 60% of the violations the camera captures, potential violations, are accepted out because they're not bona fide violations of red light camera law. Under the provisions of a court decision called Hollywood versus Aram, which is in the Fourth Circuit Court, happened a few years ago. The court ruled that the violations that were being processed by the vendor, they were doing all of it. They were processing it, they were mailing it out, they were collecting all the money, they were doing virtually all of the work for the police department. And the court ruled that city cannot delegate a municipal function to a vendor, and they had to retain that function. In the city of Gulf Breeze, that is how our system worked, and that's how I'm recommending that the city of Crestview do the same thing. So that when I spoke with Assistant Attorney General Robert Dietz about the way we did business, he told me we were the only city in the state that was in compliance with that court decision by the way we did business, because we did 100% of the work in the city of Gulf Breeze. This is what your equipment looks like. The right-hand photograph, oh darn. Okay, the right-hand photograph shows a camera. You can see it's mounted on a single pole. It's only about 2.5 or 3 feet high. It's pretty unobtrusive. The photograph on the left shows the photo enforced sign that is required by the statute, by the Mark Wandel Traffic Safety Act, and it's placed on the roadway in front of every intersection that's enforced, that's photo enforced. In addition, the Mark Wandel Traffic Safety Act was modified a few years ago to require a sign that's central picture, the lower central picture, is a sign at each intersection below the traffic light saying that that area is photo enforced. So there's no gotcha instances. There's no attempt to try to not make it clear that photo enforcement is in use for the motoring public, so that they have every opportunity to stop and comply with the red light. So the technology, the camera detects the violations. The camera, the automated traffic safety enforcement, the only automatic part of it is the camera taking the picture. After that, the entire process is handled by individuals, by people. It cannot proceed, the violations can't proceed through the queue without people viewing them and moving them forward. And I want to make sure I clarify that, because it dispels the myth that it's a hands-off, impersonal thing, that cameras are simply sending out these violations willy-nilly. Everyone is reviewed by a human being. But the camera does provide the timing, the speed, the date, the time of the offense. It's radar detected, so it doesn't require road cuts. They're relatively easy to install. The cameras that you saw, the pictures of the camera, that camera right up there in the upper right, detects the violation by the use of radar, and the only connection between the camera and the traffic light is a sensor that goes to the traffic controller box, which is permitted by the DOT to connect up with the traffic controller box to sense when the light changes from red to green to amber and so forth. The equipment is maintained by the vendor, and it's an internet-based violation which the police can validate, and the software is also provided by the vendor. So is storage of the video. They can be stored, video and the still photos are stored in the cloud by the vendor in a secure location. And this system, the census system, can be integrated with license plate reader and other technologies. For example, you could get video, live streaming video if the police needed that. It's a feature you have. You could also have a DVR installed so you could record all of the traffic that goes through, because the camera only records violations. So it doesn't record traffic that's not committing a violation of the red light. Most of the time, traffic is running through a green light, and so the camera's not functioning. But you could have a DVR installed or a video installed if you needed that feature. And the software is operated by the police in-house. So here's the red light approval process. I just wanted to quickly go through this. The reviewer is the first step, and that would be, well, in most cases it was me. And I would review all violations. So I would typically get 40 to 60 violations a day, potential violations. And I would go through them, and if it was a car that stopped on the stop bar, if the license plate wasn't readable, if the car made a right turn on red, we don't enforce right on red in Gulf Breeze, we would just, that was the end of it. That violation, potential violation, was dismissed. And only ones that actually went through the intersection after the light turned red were forwarded on to be processed. The next step, the orange colored bar there, is a lookup, where the dispatch would look up the tags and enter the data as to who owned that vehicle. That's how we did it in Gulf Breeze. And that person has the ability to also accept out. At every step, it can be thrown out. So if the dispatcher felt that the car hadn't gone through the red light, or if they couldn't get a valid owner, which does happen from time to time, that's the end of it. That gets thrown out. The next is the approver, and that was a sworn police officer. We used our school resource officers in their undedicated school time. They had a computer in an office, and they would be the ones who would approve the violation, and without the police officer reviewing the violation, it could not be issued. And whichever officer it was, that's the name that got attached to the violation notice. So he approved everything so far. He would review that it was a violation. He would also review that the data coincided. So if the dispatcher said this was a red car and it was a blue car, then the officer would not issue the violation. Then the fourth person was a back office clerical staff who would print the violations. They would make sure that they all coincided. They would put them in the mail, and then, of course, the fifth person to review them was the violator who received it. So what was the impact on crashes of doing this as a part of our comprehensive safety plan? Gulf Breeze, from between 2003 and 2015, experienced a 2.9% reduction in traffic crashes in the city. That's over 800 crashes that were prevented in the city of Gulf Breeze in that time period, which amounts to millions of dollars in property damage and personal injuries that were prevented and avoided. Not to mention, it's easier and quicker to drive in the city without having traffic crashes to deal with. Okay. Now, there are no points on the driver's license for a violation of a red light, automated red light camera violation. There are points if an officer writes a violation of a red light camera. There are not if it's an automated violation. There's no insurance surcharge for an automated violation, and it's safer and more efficient, as I mentioned. It reduces the demand for law enforcement services. It takes at least 1 hour, and I think the chief will confirm this. It takes at least 1 hour, even for a minor motor vehicle crash, for an officer to be dispatched, respond to the crash, clear the scene, go back to the police department, write up his report. So it's a very significant amount of time commitment on the part of the police department to handle a crash. So every one reduced is a significant benefit to the city. I already commented on that. So the last thing I was going to talk about was risk management, and that is that the majority of police officer fatalities in the last 10 years have been caused by traffic-related incidents, and anything that management administration can do to reduce instances where officers are placed in harm's way is a significant benefit to the police department. I think that concludes it. I think I have one or two more things in here, but it basically is a summary of what I've just said. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Comments, questions?
Since they've enacted the statute now, there's not any need for an ordinance to set this up. The reason that Gulf Breeze has got an ordinance because it didn't have a statute at the time they started.
My understanding is that it does require an ordinance to enable the city to issue a violation notice. Our ordinance does precede the statute, and the statute was actually developed from our ordinance.
I understand that, but I think you told me that Milton, all they had was an ordinance saying, see statute so-and-so.
That's correct. More or less, that is a summary of what their ordinance says, and there are many cities who adopted an ordinance because it's a non-criminal violation. They adopt an ordinance to say that we are enforcing the provisions of the Mark Lundell Traffic Safety Act.
But that'd be all you need. You wouldn't need an ordinance setting up the procedure because the procedure's in the statute.
Correct. You just need to acknowledge the statute and that you're accepting the provisions of the statute. The benefit to that is that if the statute gets amended or repealed, then your program gets amended or repealed along with the statute.
Yes, I don't think under the law you try to adopt an ordinance. If you vary from that state statute, you're going to be in violation because they've preempted it. It's not something that we can legislate
No, no, sir, that's correct. You can't legislate, but I think you do have to adopt the ordinance in order to adopt the program, that you're going to do the program, essentially.
Mr. Hayes, you had a question?
Just a comment. You know, I travel quite a bit during the state, and when I see that, I slow down.
Good idea.
But when I was in Europe, I see you just shoot the tag. In Europe, they shoot your face, the driver.
Yes,
so,
sir.
There won't be anybody saying, well, that wasn't me. But if it's going to save lives, which I think it will, I think we should definitely look into it. If we see where the state changes the statute, then we can always address that, whatever. But anything that can save lives. 85 was a disaster. It's just a disaster. And on your numbers for the number of cars, since you last took that survey, we're up about 50,000 or more now, daily traffic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're off about 20,000 now. But that's just a comment for you on that. I know it slows people down. It slows me down, and because I don't have $158 to give anybody, and I shouldn't be driving. You know, my wife said you could have made that. No, I couldn't have. I don't want Tennis doing that. You know, she might try it, but that's $158 I got to give her. So I think the program sounds good. That's all, Mr. President.
Bill,
Mr. Cox?
then I get it.
Yes, I like this program. Question, Chief, if we proceed with this, okay, the camera locations, I'm familiar with the ones in Tallahassee are on the big streets with the horizontal traffic lights, and the picture you showed was vertical. Which would we be looking at?
The vertical ones off to the side, the ones you see on the big horizontal lights, those are DOT cameras, in most cases.
Okay.
We're not allowed to access those.
Mr. Locker?
Well, that's on page 31. The camera's in that equipment, is it not? Not on the red light,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is in the equipment that you saw on the vertical pole.
on the verge of that thing. All right, now, what percentage of accuracy do it take to issue that violation?
100%.
Right. And who makes the final call on that 100%?
The sworn police officer that you have in City Crestview that would issue the violation, the same person who would be the person who would issue a red light violation in person.
From the time that the camera denotes that a violation has become active, percentage-wise, personnel-wise, how many hours, minutes, or can you tell me, is spent before that violation can be issued?
Yes, sir. I can tell you that in the City of Gulf Breeze, I refer to City of Gulf Breeze because that's where my experience is. We issued, in 2016, we issued 7,000 violations in the year. That amounts to about 30 a day. And it takes a police officer, a trained police officer who has been doing this on a regular basis. I used to do them, as I said, I did 100,000. You can confirm the violation in about 30 seconds. If you have doubt, you can play the video. The video is a 5-second clip. You can replay it as many times as you need. I want to say that it would take about a half an hour a day of my time, which meant that it took a half an hour a day of the officer's time, which meant that it took a half an hour a day of the dispatcher's time. But we used to have our dispatchers look up those tags on the midnight shift when it was quiet hours, and they run tags anyway. They do them pretty quickly, and then they enter the data. And then our secretary and our clerk in the morning would print the violations, and she could, what we call batch print them. If there were 20, she could just hit a button and all 20 would print out. She'd confirm they were all valid, put them in a window envelope, and mail them off. So the total time would be about an hour and a half a day for all of those people.
How many people? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
It would be 5 people doing,
5 people, right.
doing the work. Well, actually 4 in the police department. It would be the dispatcher, the officer, and the 3, the clerk. I would do them out externally myself.
So basically, where did you come out, bottom line, on that $75?
It would cost about $7,000 a year in officers' time. That's assuming that you had to hire an additional officer, but I think like we've spoken, and the officers can do it during their undedicated time, or you could have an officer who was on light duty perhaps, who would give him, it would give him a chore. And that's the primary commitment of time. And the dispatchers on the midnight shift, I believe they might have the time to run a dozen tags a night. That's not a lot for a dispatcher to do. Sir?
Well, now, the vendor, what is the basic monthly cost or fee is charged for that individual unit?
About $3,000.
$3,000.
Yes, sir.
Chief, we looking at 4, 5?
Looking at setting up 2 intersections, 4 cameras to start with.
Right. But I can see, and it's needed, no doubt about it. But then my question is looking to see how much. And with the time of violation, what percentage of protests have you encountered since y'all involved this?
Very good question, sir. I meant to address that initially. Surprisingly few.
Really?
Yes, sir. Very few. I'm going to say that we would conduct approximately 3 or 4 hearings a month for people who wanted to come in and protest that they were not the drug violator, or whatever their case was, whatever their defense that they could raise. It was about 3 or 4 a month. And we would schedule them once a month. We had a hearing officer that was hired by the city, who was an attorney who had done motor vehicle hearings for the court, and he would conduct the hearings, and at the conclusion of the hearing, if he found the violator responsible, the violator was also responsible for the cost of the hearing, which the council can according to the Mark Wendell Traffic Safety Act, you can charge up to $250 per hearing for the violation.
We all have had this in progress 11 years now.
Yes, sir.
How many fatalities have you had
Since
from running a red light?
0.
Great.
0.
So, Mr. President.
Mr. Cox?
Yes, if someone receives a notice of violation on a red light, what is the time window to make payment? And
60 days. 60 days.
oh, okay, I didn't see that anyway.
The violator would have 60 days from the time they receive the notice to make payment to the city. In Gulf Breeze, and I would recommend this to Crestview as well, we sent out a reminder notice because we think that a lot of people simply forgot it, put it on the desk and didn't pay attention to it. We would send out a reminder notice. It's not required, but we would remind them, you still have an outstanding traffic violation, please attend to it before it converts to a uniform traffic citation, then it goes to court. And so it was worth the few extra stamps that we required and letters we printed up to get people to pay attention to it. Our philosophy in Gulf Breeze was, when in doubt, throw it out. I told that to all of my personnel. If there was ever a question in anybody's mind which was a violation, throw it out. I've suggested that to the chief here, and I believe that he's put that in the packet here as well. And I think he adopts that philosophy because we're not trying to catch anybody. It's not a gotcha situation. We're trying to get people to adhere to the red light, get people to adhere to other traffic offenses and traffic patterns so that it makes traveling through the city safer. We don't want to surprise anybody. That's why all the signs are there. You also have to increase the amount of amber time by about 10% for those intersections which are red light enforced. But that's done when they're installed as well.
Okay, one more.
You still have the floor.
One more for the chief. I thought you were looking at cameras for 3 major intersections, and you just mentioned 2.
Yeah, I
only.
had 3 intersections surveyed. I thought they were the busiest intersections at the time, almost 2 years ago. I would recommend that we start out with 2 of those intersections north to southbound, just to get started in the system. We can add cameras anytime.
Yes, sir.
Then specifically, which 2 would that, or which one are you leaving out? if you did initially?
Actually, the highest ones right now, I believe, we're going to be Redstone and 85 and 90 and 85. Those were the highest number of violators at the time.
Mr.
I
Hall.
have one more question. The hearing officer, do we need an ordinance to provide for the hearing officer? Is this provided for in the statute?
It's provided for in the statute, but I believe the statute says that you need to adopt an ordinance that specifies how much of a fine you're going to impose, and that you're going to hire a hearing officer.
Mr. Mayor, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that I probably get more complaints about people running red lights than any other complaint I get on traffic in this area. And I doubt there's any person in this room who hasn't had a near-death experience with those people who are running those red lights all the time. So it's a major problem that we have, and especially, I find more problems at Redstone and 85 than I do at 85 and 90, but it's a tough problem. It's going to have to be addressed.
Yeah, Redstone 85 was the intersection that I had picked out myself as the highest, would probably be the highest violator. Actually turned out to be 90 and 85.
Really?
Yeah.
I have
Yes,
a
sir.
couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm still got a question too.
Well, we'll get right here, right now. I talked to several law enforcement officers, both at county and state level, and one thing, Mr. Hayes says that he sees that sign, he tends to slow down. Some people slam on their brakes and cause rear-end collisions. Have you ever done any studies how many rear-end collisions are caused by people overreacting? You know what I'm saying? They panic. Oh, and they slam on the brakes and get rear-ended.
I have heard that. I've heard that comment many times.
This from LA people have told me that.
And people will say that, yes, sir. We have had, I think, one or two rear-end collisions at our intersections in Gulf Breeze in the 11 years that we've been doing it. So it's a very uncommon occurrence, and I don't know that I would attribute it necessarily to the camera enforcement, other than a lack of attention of the vehicle behind, the trailing vehicle. And that's becoming a more common problem, people texting and driving, people not paying attention and driving. There's so many distractions nowadays that I think we need to really get people to refocus on their driving behavior.
Okay, I have a couple more questions too. If you get the full citation, it's always sent via certified mail, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But in this program, it's sent by just regular U.S. mail, and the statute says that's indicative that's been received, but I don't believe that's correct. You can't prove it an individual, because some people will say, I never received it.
Correct.
If you send it first class.
Right. The statute requires that if a uniform traffic citation gets mailed as a result of not paying the notice of violation, the two distinctive things: the notice of violation is the non-criminal $158 fine that you can pay. That can be mailed by first-class postage, and I believe the city attorney would confirm that courts have held that depositing mail in the first-class mail is presumptive that it's been delivered to the recipient, even though it may not have been.
I don't know if I agree with that.
The courts accept the delivery, the deposit of the mail, and that's what the statute provides as well for the non-criminal violation. If it reverted to a uniform traffic citation,
I understand that.
that has to be certified. And if the person who received that raised the issue that they never got the original violation, they could raise that as a defense in court. And in Gulf Breeze, we actually would entertain that as a consideration. We had an arrangement with our court for a period of time that if a violation went to a uniform traffic citation and subsequently the person paid it, the violation that is, the $158 fine, that we would notify the court, and the court would dismiss the uniform traffic citation. And that's something that I would recommend that the chief try to do with the court here as well. It benefits the folks immensely.
Okay, thank you. One thing I did note, you left off the affidavit for defense. One defense is if the driver of the car has died. And I
Yes.
think that's a pretty good exception.
We'll accept
Anyway.
that, we'll accept
Well, yeah,
that
you'll accept that, okay.
as a reasonable
I know the
excuse.
statute addresses that, so.
Yes, sir.
I do have you, no, you're with the company now or not?
I have my own company, sir.
Right.
'Cause
Well,
I
my
do
question would be,
consulting.
have we experienced vandalism by people who are not real happy with red light cameras?
None at all.
Not at all. That's
No.
good. That's good.
And if you were to experience that, that would be a requirement of the vendor to repair that.
Okay. I think the last question I have, I don't know, is that since these are FDOT lights in the city of Crestview, but managed by the county, don't we have to get approval from someone to be putting these lights up? And-
Yes, sir.
and who's gonna approve it?
The Department of Transportation will provide you with a permit to, and what the vendor, Census, where'd he go? There he is. What they will do is they hire an engineering firm who develop engineered drawings, they submit to DOT, and they get approval for the exact location of the light, and if they need to make connections, where they make connections and so forth. And the DOT provides you a permit, and the permits are good for a period of, I think, 5 years, and then they can be renewed.
Okay. All right, I do have one more question I forgot about, and that is, you said that you don't enforce the right on red, but the way the statute is written, that's only if you make a safe and prudent turn. So it seems to me you would enforce it if you observe something is not safe and prudent on a right-hand turn, on a red light.
That's correct. We made an administrative decision not to do that for 2 reasons. We have very little pedestrian traffic in the city of Gulf Breeze. It's almost all motor vehicle traffic. And secondly, the other communities that enforce right on red have who asked me about the hearings, number of hearings, was it you, sir? Have probably a 10-fold increase in hearing requests and complaints about the right on red. It's a very well-known, common problem, and I'd recommend if you don't have a compelling public safety reason to enforce right on red, that you not do so.
So I guess I'm asking, if you observed something that almost caused an accident because it wasn't safe and prudent, you still would throw it out?
Well, you would have to, we never adopted, in Gulf Breeze, we never adopted the safe and prudent language that's required by the statute, so we couldn't enforce right on red in the city of Gulf Breeze. But if the city of Crestview does create safe and prudent language in their ordinance, you could do it, and under those circumstances, yeah, you could issue that violation.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Looks like Mr. Blocker has another question here.
Yeah, does this camera or cameras monitor both directions or only one direction?
One direction, each camera monitors one direction. In Gulf Breeze, we can get 3 lanes of width with one camera in each direction. So it just takes one camera in
One
each.
camera will
Each
control-
direction gives you 6 lanes altogether, up to 6 lanes.
One camera controls complete intersection.
Only in the direction it's facing. So crossing
Well, my
it,
question is,
Huh?
east or west, north and south, what I want to know, who monitors it? Is there one camera? Has the capability of doing that?
no, sir.
Oh, I didn't think so.
It would require 4 cameras to do east and west
Right.
and north and south for each lane, each direction of travel.
So each direction, each camera,
Yes, sir.
independent.
Yes, sir.
Answer my question, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you so much for your presentation.
You're welcome. I hope I answered your questions thoroughly.
This, we're just asking for a consensus on whether to proceed with the project. Obviously, there's a lot to this. And I didn't want to tap some tremendous resources to put this together and bring it back if you weren't interested in it. I think it's a worthy project. I also, again, I told you I have the Vice President of Census here, Alan Quinn, if you have any logistical questions or equipment questions, contractual questions, things like that. Well, he's not from here, so you might have a little difficulty understanding him.
Oh,
They've been a tremendous resource, and to kind of allude to what you asked, Mr. Blocker, when I had that survey conducted, I only had north and southbound done on each
Right,
intersection.
that's what I understood.
Again, you'd need 4 cameras to cover an entire intersection. So, what can you confer from that? It would be a speculation at that point.
Well, that's why I lead to my question, Mr. President. What percentage of the violations was activated and caught on north and south and nobody east and west?
Nobody was caught east and west because the cameras are facing north and south.
Right, so is that putting north and south in jeopardy or what? That's a safety factor.
Well, it depends on what number of cameras you want to start out with. I will do it any way you want to do it.
But from your knowledge, documentation now, how many of our accidents has been going east and west and north and south?
I'd have to really look at the data. We did the statistical analysis on intersection crashes on 85,
Right.
and it was 967 this year. That's what we've written reports on. It was 13 and change total and the other 500-600 we didn't have to write reports on because they were worked out between the parties, or they were what we call minor damage under driver exchange for information insurance purposes only.
Yes, sir.
But Mr. Quinn, I mean, if you had some cost questions, he
Yes.
might be able to answer some of that.
I also have that.
Okay, Mr. Quinn.
I'd like to hear him too.
Yeah, you're gonna hear.
Can we
All right,
understand him?
I warned you.
Hi, I'm Alan Quinn. I'm the Vice President of Census, and pleasure to be here. And I am from a different place, as you will know from my accent. But I am a citizen here, so if I can be of any help, please.
Mr. President, walk me through from tomorrow. If we decided we wanted to do the process, where and how would we begin? Dollar-wise, tell me your system.
Well, it's a complicated thing to start from tomorrow, but if you're interested in the dollar-wise, it would not cost the city a penny from the minute it
Now
started.
say it again.
It would not, shall I say a cent rather than a penny?
I told you you couldn't understand.
The census, in answer to somebody else's question earlier on, there's a risk involved for our company to do this. We would not charge, we would agree a price on a monthly basis that was negotiated between the city and the company. For that price, we would install and operate, if you like, the camera systems that the chief wanted to put up. If, let's just say it's $3,000 per system per month, if revenues didn't cover that $3,000, the city would not pay anything, but Census would want to take the money that was available. In other words, the revenue that was made. If in the following month, let's just say that revenues were $7,000 and the month before it was $2,000 and there was a $1,000 difference, Census going forward would want to recoup that $1,000 that they lost on the first month, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. If the revenues never meet the agreed contract, and when the contract ends, Census will take that loss completely. It's called cost neutral, and it means that there is absolutely no financial risk in any way, shape or form to the city, the municipality. So it's a calculated risk, and it's based on the information that we take from traffic surveys, and we would really look at the need to make sure that the places that these cameras were being placed were really high incident places and merited the investment that it would take. So we take care of all the civil engineering. It would be a local civil engineering company that we would employ to do that work. We take care of all of the permitting with FDOT and everything else. Excuse me. And we work very closely with the city and the police department in the upkeep of and the maintenance of those systems. And as Chief Paulding said, I believe that Census is the only company at the moment that allows the police and the city to operate that system 100%. So the vendor doesn't have anything to do with the citations and such like. It's all done within city or police bounds. So it's a no-risk situation financially. Does that mean that the vendor's not going to make a profit out of doing it? The hope is that we do. But in doing so, we hope we're going to save a few lives as well. Does that help you all?
What is the limitation, or is there a limitation to the length of your contract to initially begin?
Normally speaking, we would look for a 5-year contract, but it's a year to start off with. Each of these installations costs well over 100,000 to put into place. So if you're talking 4 camera systems, then without the civil engineering or anything else, you're actually, sorry, with the civil engineering, you're talking about 100,000 per camera system. That's without anything else. That's just purely to supply the equipment, install the equipment, commission the equipment, and make sure that all of the permitting is right, FDOT approvals and everything else. So it's a very large investment up front for a company to undertake. Sensis is a Florida-based company, and it's an MBE. It's a minority business enterprise. It's owned by a Swede. I'm a British person. The guy who owns that thing came over from Sweden 10 years ago, having worked with a company called Sensis Traffic in Sweden, one of the largest traffic enforcement, photo enforcement companies in Europe. So he's brought a tremendous amount of experience with him and people. And, I'm with that company because I believe in it, not because I'm making money, although I do make a little bit of money, but it's because I believe in what they're doing. They're very good at it.
My final question, what would be the bottom dollar to put 4 cameras in operation?
I couldn't for a second tell you that at this moment in time.
But let me reiterate
Go
what
ahead.
he said earlier, Mr. Blocker. 0 to the city of Crestview.
I
Yes,
heard that a while ago.
absolutely.
I want to reconfirm that.
Yeah,
Reconfirm it.
yeah, 0 it is, yeah, without
Okay.
any doubt. Obviously, there is time involved from your own side, and you've gone through now what you would require to put forward in the way of personnel and the training that they would require in order to do the jobs that they require. But as far as putting the system up is concerned, running the system, as far as maintenance is concerned, it's not going to cost you anything. The units that we build are vandal-proof, pretty much. I don't think it stops anybody spraying a can of paint across the lens of the cameras, but the cameras are really high quality. There is some very advanced functionality in there that would not only help the people who review the systems, but would certainly help the police in other areas as well. So, excuse me, there's an awful lot that goes into this, and we pride ourselves in doing a really good job and taking care of the customers. Chief Pauldings said 11 years, I think, Sensis have been supplying Gulf Breeze for pretty much all of that time, is it? 10 years, 10 years. And they have just now renewed again, and it's not under pressure. It's because they have no reason to move elsewhere. They're very satisfied with the outcome of what they're doing and the service that's provided.
What would you basically suspect that the lifespan of that camera might be?
Well, if you were to put a system into Crestview, it's with the latest technology that's available. So 5 to 10 years is about right. But technology changes and requirements change as well. And therefore, what is being offered today isn't what was offered 10 years ago. Okay? So there are options available where we could look at, after a period of time, so we've recouped the investment and perhaps made a little bit, that we would refurbish or regenerate the equipment that's in the field so that you have the latest technology. What we wouldn't want to see is any deterioration in the quality from day one to the end of the program, whenever that end may come. So you would always get what was promised from day one. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And there are opportunities to upgrade the system with other technologies as well, as technology moves forward. The latest radar, for instance, multi-tracking radar, it will go across 6 lanes and it will pinpoint vehicles really, really accurately, and certified in every country that has anything to do with radar as well.
Is your product American-made?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me be very, very honest on that. Yes, in that we all of the software is here, Florida, and the hardware. If we are using a a camera, we will use Nikon for the stills. It's a 24, 25 megapixel high definition camera, so you have a still. And then you would use the latest video cameras. There's a set of cameras, there's not just one camera, video cameras in there that will give you both very high definition and lower resolution thumbnails, so that people have access to it very quickly via a cellular modem. Excuse me. And then what Chief Paulding was saying earlier on about the DVR, that comes as standard with our product. So you always have the ability to download video at varying qualities. Thumbnails first, so you want a quick look and it's just a line of pictures, but every picture has all of the detail on it that you saw on that side of things. But if you wanted to have a high definition image of any of those frames, you just press a button and the high definition image will appear. Because of communication bandwidths and such like, we run in several modes, resolution-wise.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. President.
Mr. Cox, and I'll call you Mr. Owen. You've been waiting.
Yes, Chief, with approval to proceed, what would be the estimated lead time to have a system initially operational?
Well, what'll happen if we have a consensus for us to proceed with the project, we'll kick into planning mode. We'll develop all the rules and the regulations and bring it all back to you within a couple of months for a formal vote. Ordinances, resolutions, whatever is needed to do at that point. You'll have all the details worked out for you. And once we approve it, what does it take to get the system operational? 4 to 5 months. So we're looking probably midsummer.
Mr. Hawley?
I just was going, the vendor is providing a service to the city, and as a result, we're required by statute to have a public records requirement in that contract. I know I looked at the one we had in one time, it didn't have it in, but the one that we had, that you had before with census,
Right.
it didn't have that requirement that's required of any service contract we enter into.
Okay, and that's
We'll have to have that.
part of this logistical process. We'll bring back something that you're satisfied with, Mr. Hawley, on a legal thing.
Well, I can give you the language, because I've done it 100 times for the school system in the
Absolutely.
city. But it has to be, and we put it in all our contracts for services the city does, and it's required by statute.
Absolutely.
See if we have a consensus for the chief to move forward. How are you, Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? Mr. Cox? I tell you, Chief, I'm still doing research. As you know, I call for extra data from your department, and I haven't been able to get all the details on that data yet. I'm still researching that. I'm not with the group right now, but we have a consensus from the group with my holding out until I get more details.
We'll put that together as quick as we can. Understand though, when we go to an intersection and to investigate a crash, a lot of times we're not able to pinpoint that directly to a red light violation, because both drivers are going to be saying they had a green light in the cases. So I mean, without this kind of technology or available to us at this point, it's kind of difficult to
Yeah, but if you're saying there's a problem because of red lights, then the citation would back that up.
Well, there's
would they not?
problem with traffic in general, and our single fatality this year was based on a red light runner.
Understand. Anyway, you have these.
Yes, sir.
You have these three people anyway, the consensus. So you have the consensus to go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Update on city charter review. Ms. Teresa, if you would lead us down that path.
Okay, we have revised your proposed charter to incorporate the items that were unconcerned in the workshop of October 30th. And just to brief everybody so that they know, the formal approval of the proposed charter by the City Council is the next step in the course of actions that will allow the formal presentation of the document to the public. The approved and proposed charter will be incorporated into an ordinance format presented to the council in 2 public hearings. After that presentation in the latter meeting, the council will vote on the adoption of the ordinance and the passage of which will allow for and direct the submission to the proposed charter to the electorate. If we would like to run through real quick through the revisions of the charter itself. On the first page of the charter, page 1 of 12, which is your page 49 of 93. In 301, form of government, all council members shall be elected by votes cast by city electorals, and that is verified definition in Article 6, which is section 602. The term, the term for limit was actually omitted from that sentence because it is duplicated on the next page in section 302, and the term of the office of mayor and council members shall be 4 years. So there was no sense in duplication of that particular area. The next revision was in Article 401, where in the last phase of number 1, and to sign all contracts the city enters into on behalf excuse me, on behalf of, should be of the city. So we got a little typo there.
That was to correct that change. What we had in there, what they had in there before is that he'd sign all contracts attested by the clerk, but the clerk actually attests his signature, so we had to put it in there like that.
It left out a phase, a partial of the sentence there. On page 3, you will see where it duplicates. We've added the mayor, mayor, mayor. This document now is should be completely gender neutral. Means that there should not be phases of mentions of, we've eliminated the references to gender, masculine, feminine, or self-determined. On page 6 of 12, under Article 5, page 54, we let in with the compensation. That was another request from the attorney. Under 501, city manager, the last sentence in the first paragraph, the compensation to be paid the city manager for services rendered by said manager shall be set by the city council in the contract between the city manager and the city. In section 502, under the city attorney, last sentence, the compensation to be paid the city attorney for services rendered by said attorney shall be set by the city council in the contract between the city attorney and the city. In section 503, city clerk, last sentence, first paragraph, the compensation to be paid to the city clerk for services rendered shall be set by the city council. And finally, in section 504, the departments, this was reworded. The department head shall be appointed by the city council with the recommendation of the city manager. The city manager shall make recommendations to the city council regarding the organization of city government and prescribe the duties and responsibilities assigned to the various departments. The city manager shall direct the department heads of the city in a manner consistent with this charter and the city's code of ordinances. The compensation to be paid to various department heads for services rendered shall be set by the city clerk. City council. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading tonight. Any questions so far? We will go on into section 6. 603, concerning the qualifications, eligibility, and filing fee. Item D, determination of person elected. In the case of 2 or more persons receiving an equal and highest number of votes for the same office, the election shall be determined as per Florida statutes Title 9, Chapter 100, Section 100.181, and you have that verbiage in your attachments, but stating it for the record. Section 100.181, determination of the person elected. The person receiving the highest number of votes cast in a general or special election for the office shall be elected to the office. In the case of 2 or more persons receiving an equal and highest number of votes for the same office, such person shall draw lots to determine who shall be elected to the office. In section 607, the council precincts, there was a question there. We had shown that the boundaries of the 3 precincts shall remain the same as they existed prior to the approval of this charter by the electorate of the city until changed as provided herein. We have inserted the precincts stating there with their descriptions. Precinct, City of Crestview shall be divided into 3 precincts, numbered as follows. Number 1, East Crestview, comprising all the area within the corporate limits east of Main Street and south of U.S. Highway number 90. Number 2, West Crestview, comprising the territory, excuse me, guys, within the corporate limits west of Main Street and south and west of the U.S. Highway 90. Number 3, North Crestview, comprising of all the territory within the corporate limits north of U.S. Highway 90. Is it your wish for that to remain in?
Yeah, I don't think we had a question about whether it should remain in. We're talking about, we need to examine it in the future because it might be inequitable now because population has changed within the precincts.
Mm-hmm.
I think we didn't have a problem with being in there, just we wanted to look in the future if we want to redesignate that, but currently, I think we agree it needs to be in there.
I agree.
Right, Mr. Clark, you had the objection was the increase in population in the precinct, we were gonna take it out. Yeah. We're gonna take out what the districts are, the precincts are.
I'm not
We'll look
making
at
an
that in
issue
the
of it, just
Okay, so,
That concludes the revisions that were requested.
all right, any questions, comments on the revisions? I wanna make note of one thing, and that was the question I raised about the role of the mayor,
Right,
whether they would
that's,
have
that's coming up next.
public access. Yeah.
I got it says it's to change as provided herein. Does it provide herein? How do you change it?
Which one are we on?
On page 50 of what?
I don't know.
That's the-
Until changed as provided herein. We have provided the precincts as shown there. Do you wish to change that verbiage there?
Okay, that's the change you're talking
Yeah.
about. But what if you decide to make another change?
Well, if you leave the description of the precincts in, the charter itself would have to be changed in order to change those precincts.
That's the question I had, because if you decided to change those precincts, and it says it's provided herein, but there's no anything that says it's provided, how you provide it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Cox.
Yes, a question and maybe some clarification on, relative to compensation, both on mayor on 401 and 402 on council members. Can you explain what that's saying?
On which one, the,
Relative to compensation, CO, as the salary of council members shall be set by ordinance, which there's an existing one.
that is, you have an ordinance that has set the salaries for it, and if there's an, let me find the city council here.
Referencing 402C and 401C. C is, it references the mayor, and 401C
Right,
references
this,
the council
I'm just
member.
making, yeah, 401C is your compensation for the mayor, and then is actually done by ordinance. And that's the way it is done now.
Okay, but also on council members, it said compensation shall take effect upon the council member assuming office following the next council election. So if
That means you don't change the compensation mid-election. It's at an election that you can change the compensation for the
okay, that's
board.
what I was asking for
Right,
some
mhm, that's
clarification
it.
on that. So I'm unclear what that was saying.
Mhm.
So is that really only up for a possible review during, well, every 2 years?
It says at an election, and our elections are only every 2 years.
Well, you actually
So-
could do it anytime, but it wouldn't take effect.
It wouldn't take
Okay, well,
effect
that's-
until then.
Until if a change were made, then it would take effect at the next election cycle, which is on council, every 2 years.
Every
'cause
2 years.
we-
Mhm.
Okay, I got it.
Any other questions on that? So we move on to the sunshine mayor.
Okay. The question that we had concerning the mayor was answered in your Government in the Sunshine. And it says here that in 7C, in Part 1 of Government in the Sunshine Law, C, government meeting for individual city commissioner or city council member. If the mayor is a member of the council or has a voice in the decision-making through the power to break tie votes, meetings between the mayor or the member of the city council to discuss some matter which will come before the city council are subject to the Sunshine Law. And it gives you where you actually find that. However, if a decision falls within the administrative functions of the mayor and would not come before the city council for consideration, discussions between an individual member of the council or the mayor are not subject to the Sunshine Law, since such discussion do not relate to a matter which will be foreseeably come before the city council for action. On the other hand, if the mayor is not a member of the city council and does not possess any power to vote, even in the case of a tie vote, but possesses only the power of veto legislation, The mayor may privately meet with individual member of the city council without violating the Sunshine Law, provided the mayor is not acting as a liaison between the members. Neither individual has been delegated the authority to act on behalf of the council. So I believe that answers the question that was asked, whether or not the mayor would have the ability to discuss items with the council itself, if he were to be in the position as described in the proposed charter.
In fact, that second paragraph is what we've been doing.
The second paragraph is the one that answers the question. Yes, since he would not be a voting member of the council, he would not, it would not be a violation of the Sunshine Law. Now, however, when you're acting as your mayor pro tem, as a member of the council, you would not have that same luxury of interacting with the other council members as it would be a violation of Sunshine. But as long as the mayor's holding the position and the requirements as elaborated in our proposed charter, it will be strictly within the Sunshine Laws and not a violation.
All right.
We had requests that if it so be desired in a consensus of the board, that we bring this forward to the council in maybe the December 11th meeting or even the January 8th for approval. Once the proposed charter is approved, we can begin fashioning it into an ordinance, which will then be brought before the board to be voted on. There are some other items that would need to be discussed prior to the preparation of the ordinance. Number one, it will need to be passed by ordinance, which is your two readings. You'll need to decide the type of election process you would like to have, because that has to be stated in your ordinance. There's either a standalone election, or you can piggyback on it on a county-wide election cycle. You can have mail ballots election. Most of your documentation will have to be prepared 3 to 6 months ahead of time. If you go with a ballot that's going to be out for either the standalone or your piggyback, you're looking at having a ballot title of 15 words and a ballot summary of 75 words for each breakdown of of what you want to put on the ballot. Difference. I think last time they had 3 particular subject matter breakdowns. That might be something that you would like brought back to you in a breakdown as what it could be. Your citywide standalone election from Paul Lux, he gave us an estimate of $13,500. If we're in conjunction with another countywide election, it's the cost of the legal advertisement and then notice of election. They have to be 2 times, and public testing, canvasses, and board meeting is $1,000. Mail ballot election would run between $10,000 and $14,000. So those are just several of the items that need to be discussed and in order to be able to prepare an ordinance to bring the charter ordinance to the council. I don't.
Work closely with the supervisor to make sure that of elections, to make sure we got it right in that ordinance. And about separating so they vote on different.
Yes, that's what the separation is. This is from Mr. Lux himself. They will have to be separated. You can have your separations of your items. You can have a 15-word title and a 75-word summary for each particular avenue that you want to break it into. So, I suggest that, if we're allowed to bring the approval of the charter to the December meeting, that, maybe that we could have a workshop. I guess we'll rerun it into the January timeframe in order to get the data for the particulars to form up the ordinance at, either at the workshop in January or if we have a special workshop in December. Depends on how readily we can assemble all the information and when we could present to you the questions so you can give us the feedback for which type of election you want and how the different breakdowns that you'd like to have. So,
We need to move this along as quickly as possible. No, I'm not talking about this meeting. No, I'm talking about the charter. We want it brought back in December, for sure. Whatever it is that you need in order to form your ordinance.
okay, I need a consensus of the board for the approval of the charter at the December 11th. It is your item,
That's what I'm looking for now.
it's page 47 of 93. So, if we could get a consensus of that.
Mr. President, I'm in favor with the consensus.
Mr. Butler?
Before I give my consensus first, I would like to ask Mr. President, Teresa, walk me through the procedure that we have got to go through before this referendum is presented to the voters.
Before it goes to the board, that's, that is what we went through on your agenda item sheet there. If you look, the formal approval of the charter documentation that you've reviewed and critiqued, the city council must approve that. They also must decide the type of election, the verbiage, and all in order to facilitate an ordinance. Then, this approved charter and the approved way that you want to submit it to the public, which type of election, whether you want a mail-out ballot, whether you want a referendum, all that, once you have that, you merge those into an ordinance. That ordinance will take 2 council meetings that have to be advertised. And when you go through your 2 council meetings and passage of an ordinance, that's when you will have your document that you can submit out to go to the public.
Yes, but if you do a referendum, you got 2 advertisements required for the election.
That's right.
Yes,
Well,
sir,
I'm doing that.
there's a whole cycle of those that we've got, and it's all in the documentation that was submitted to y'all by Paul Lux. It will tell you that the governing body must produce the ordinance, and that said ordinance must be read on 2 separate hearings. It has to be advertised at least 10 days before adoption, and you must state all the meeting criteria there. And when you will, let me get where we've done here. The official municipal election day, should you want it on one that there's not a county, that is in March. You must advertise in a newspaper of general circulation. You must advertise at least twice, once on the 5th week, once on the 3rd week. And this is the notice of the election, not the ordinance that's being advertised. The notice of the election. All those legislative meetings have to be advertised. And that's we've got numerous rules and regulations that will be handled as it processes towards the time for election. But our first avenue is to actually get something approved so that we can start forming the ordinance. And of that is the approval of the verbiage of the charter and approval of what type of referendum, mail-out ballots? Are we going to have participate in the countywide election in November? I think November 2019, there's going to be countywide.
There's
The-
a primary in August of
November
19.
2019.
A primary in August of 18,
Right.
a general in
August of
November
19.
18.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a county election or a city election, municipal election until March of 19.
March of 19. So that's kind of what Mr. Lux was shooting at, whether or not, if you're going to wait for that one, or if you're going to go ahead and step into a mail-out ballot. So,
Well, I wish I'd have went ahead and followed my gut feeling and requested you to have Mr. Lux at this workshop.
I started to ask him, but he would be going over the same referendum that I emailed you. That was his PowerPoint. So if you would like Mr. Lux to come and talk with you directly, we can do that. But this is the
I would suggest that at our next workshop pertaining to this change.
Okay, this is the PowerPoint that he had used at the Charter Review Committee. So, so you're,
I personally requested, Mr. President. That's my question.
Mr. Cox.
Where is that? And it's not in this package, is it? I haven't seen it.
no, sir, that was emailed to the board some time ago, when they got their
Somebody
charter
got
review.
emailed to me.
Mr. Cox, you have.
Back to consensus of the council, I'm a yes to proceed with this. And also state that the estimated cost of a mail-in ballot is significantly less than what I thought it would be, so I'm good with that too. Thanks.
Okay, with Mr. Hayes, Mr. Cox, and myself, are you with us enough for consensus to proceed on the December meeting for Teresa to bring the verbiage to us?
I want
For the
sufficient time, if there's time, yes, to do this.
Right now, we're looking at, Teresa has to bring to us whether we're going to vote on the charter itself. We can't go anything else until we vote on the charter itself.
Well, you
It has
can
nothing to do with the
vote
mail-out ballot or anything.
on the charter and
Yes.
the
Right, exactly.
type of election you want to have on it at the same meeting.
Concur.
Yeah, so you concur with doing that in December?
If that can be arranged and sufficiently,
Yeah, that's what we're giving her that guidance, we want to do it in December.
yes.
Okay, you have a consensus.
Okay, that, I'm going to bring back the verbiage for the charter at that point in time,
Yes,
December 11th.
yes. Okay.
And also, the decision how they want the election to be held, either by referendum or mail-out. You could do that after they approve the charter, they could do it in the same.
I think we could only do that, Mr. Hawley, if we bring Mr. Lux here too, because that's what Mr. Blocker's
Right.
requesting.
Yes.
So we could vote on how we want to do it if we have Mr. Lux here also.
True.
Okay, all right. All right, we have that settled. Let's move on to some alcohol now.
Since we're the drunkest city in the county.
Oh, I don't know how they took 3 cities and made 1 city out of it. Okay, updating alcohol.
This just to give you sort of a status report. You know, we were requested to review the alcohol beverage, their locations, their vicinities, their zoning district statuses, establishments, neighborhoods, and other elements. And we have provided a small chart there in your book that shows you, we have plotted out 54 alcohol beverage license holders. We have 61 religious buildings. On our map, we have 9 daycare establishments, and we've found that we've gotten 20 parcels that are school-oriented. You can tell by the map that it's scattered all over. We have, we're in progress with this. We have gotten our buffers around them. We have We're evaluating the response between the ones that are in close proximity to between the commercial zoning districts and your residential. We've actually had one establishment knocked out of being able to participate in a commercial environment because they were too close to the residential. Matter of fact, residential actually joined them. So they are still looking for a place to be. As even there's not many areas in our main strip of Highway 85, especially northern 85, that your commercial is more than one half of a block wide. It does free up more to the south end of town, where you have a long width of your commercial zoning districts. But unfortunately, there's very few vacancies there, and when they are, they're very high. The cost of the property or the rental is very deal killing, is the way the gentleman put it. And that's just where we are. We're working on it, so just want
Teresa,
to let you
would
know.
you remind me what our ultimate goal is here?
To evaluate locations where the beverages could be served in relationship to our commercials. We were
So
studying
just evaluate where the new ones could go?
where new ones. We have had several that have had to walk away from our town, which some of them are restaurants, some of them are, have been just like your microbreweries. We've had, I know 2 restaurants that have decided not to come because the property that they can afford to put their facility in, even though they're nice, reputable businesses, you're too close to your residential. If your commercial borders your residential, we have a residential buffer zone there.
Yeah, we understand that. I just wondering.
So that's
I just wondering
it.
why we would. By the way, did we approve the license in a new liquor store going up today? I don't remember seeing that one. I might have missed it, but.
What new liquor store that went up?
By
today?
Marco's Pizza, there's a liquor store going up there. They put the
Yeah.
signs up today.
Yes,
It's
sir.
not open, but they put the signs up.
That was in last meeting's, the
Uh-huh.
Cost Plus.
Yeah, that was in
Cost
the-
Plus?
Which one is it?
I think it was 2, it was Cost Plus and one, there was 2 on the consent agenda last month.
It was Cost Plus is the one that's going to be located at there. And actually, you've actually approved that
Cost
one
Plus,
twice.
Is that the name of it?
That's
Okay.
that's their new name.
All right. Okay.
You've approved it twice. You approved it under Hason's,
No, I'm not talking
Hayseal.
about that one. No, I'm talking about the one in the retail plaza. You know, you got Marco's Pizza, the brand-new building. They moved there?
Yeah, they,
Okay.
it's HASKAN Properties that was approved, actually come back and bought another license, and they have moved within the same complex
Okay.
to 2 of the larger units.
I thought
So-
it was the old complex, and this was a new one. So this is the old people in the new place.
Yeah, the old people went to the new, bigger place.
Good. Okay, let's go from alcohol to traffic.
Just cut back to the red light.
Okay, we just need clarification on our traffic impact fee. We have had a question, and of course, as we're running through it, we're faced with a question that is not covered in our code. The question being posed by prospective developers concerning the traffic impact fee stem from projects that will be assessed transportation fees and development expenses by Okaloosa County and the Florida Department of Transportation, as well as the city of Crestview. If you think about the development, the public's development that was just initiated north of town, they were inundated by extreme expenses from the FDOT and also Okaloosa County. Now, all that new pavement coming in Airport Road and the improvements there on Highway 85 was part of their transportation fees. traffic impact fees for the city of Crestview was actually waived during the time of their construction. But now, as our waiver is going out, there has been several developers with projects on the line that they want to know are in a situation where they're inundated to pay the state fees and a lot of mitigation with Okaloosa County as far as traffic concerns. Are they still going to be charged traffic impact fees from the city? Now, this is not handled in your code. It's not addressed. Do we need a conversation on this? Do we need some sort of, I've actually given you 3 different consensus. We could review it and bring it back to you in a public meeting. We could review it, bring it back to you in a workshop. We can take no action at this time and simply discuss it on a case-by-case venue for development. So, I also want to remind you that we will need to bring before you the capital improvements table for the current one. Your traffic impact fees are based on 2009 because that is your last available adopted capital improvements fund, and those are your actual roadways in Table 5 that will actually benefit from those impact fees. So, that's my question.
Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hayes.
I'm definitely against number 3 on a case by case. You know, we have something for everybody, not for whatever. So I'm not in favor of number 3, and I don't think our citizens would be either. You develop discussing something on a case by case. That's really not now to be reviewed and brought to a future workshop. I can support that.
Any other comments, questions? Yeah, Mr. Cox.
Yes, I want to reiterate what Councilman Hayes just said. That's the position I have. Number 3, I'd say a solid no, because this invites special interest bias. And number 2 is what I'm for, item to be reviewed and brought to a future workshop, parentheses, soon. That's,
Yes, Mr. Block.
and
Go ahead, he's still.
excuse
I'm
me,
sorry.
one more thing,
Go ahead.
and I would prefer 2 over 1 because 1 has little effect on most citizens. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Blocker.
I concur. I'm against number 3, 100%. And then kind of in favor, but Teresa, our moratorium runs out on our impact fees December 31st. of
December
18,
31st
17 or 18.
of 17. Your impact fees will begin January 1st, 2018.
Correct.
And the way it states, the way that it will come back into being will be with your 2009 memorandum, charts, and road tables. As, keep in mind, remember, if you choose to have any type of changes done within your traffic impact fees, charts, and your capital improvements, must be adopted prior to July 31st and become effective October the 1st of the next year, of
18.
following, 18.
Yeah.
So in April, you will be brought back the option to rehash your traffic impact fees and hopefully adopt your newest capital improvements table. Into your comprehensive plan carries your 14.1 and your 14T for your capital improvements, short range, long range. And those are generally what is used within your Table 5 as being your reason and your standing for your traffic impact fees. as the latest thing we have adopted will stem from our 2009. And if you will keep in mind, in City of Crestview, your traffic impact fee has a definite set of capacity-producing improvements that are used to calculate the cost and capacity to be consumed by new development, and that is your Table 5. The set of improvements listed in your capital improvements element of the City of Crestview's comprehensive plan. The premise is the assumption that the fee-paying development should not be charged the higher improvement costs associated with general road widening and improvements if it's unreasonable from the other developments that are implemented or given physical restraints. The set of improvements in your capital improvements elements may change from time to time, so it should be more likely to reflect improved projects and cost anticipated to give the nature of the most effective roadway, which is 85. From what you can actually pay for with your
Teresa,
impact.
We don't need to go through all the details, traffic impact fee, if we're gonna have a workshop.
Okay, well, is that what we're going to elaborate here?
We find out.
That's what I'm hearing, so we don't want to have a workshop now.
Mr. President, I'm in favor of number 2.
Okay, and you, Mr. Hayes? And Mr. Cox, all right. We have a consensus, we'll have a workshop in the future.
Okay, we're going to have a workshop for the specific question of whether or not it will be, whether there'll be an assessment of the traffic fees on a particular project if they are also paying county and state.
All right.
Sure.
And that's the only subject we're going to handle, correct?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Smith.
may I ask a question, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Can we extend the moratorium again?
We've extended it for years.
That was my question.
Well, you were talking as though we
The
had no
reason,
choice.
the
like you were doing-
reason I'm saying is that what we've been doing in the absence of having a traffic impact fee, we have taken the position like Okaloosa County and actually mitigating with these new developments and working with them and having them to do the improvements that are needed on city-owned right-of-ways, just like we're with the new assisted living facility going in behind the old Publix. We're having those new developments to help widen that portion of Redstone and extend the turning lanes, and we're doing all of that working with them, and it's a much simpler, more fairer approach than just having this and having those funds sitting there and having to be allocated. Plus, right now, we're using that extra gas sales tax to primarily, we're spending, $500,000-$600,000 a year on street improvements with that. It's not new roads, but we're covering a lot of the same reasons or uses that we would if we were collecting traffic impact fee. And the reason I ask it's been a pretty good way of getting things done right now without assessing that traffic impact fee.
But still, I agree with you. For some reason, I got the impression, I thought maybe while I was in France back in September, you all voted to keep the traffic impact fee because the way Teresa's come across, 1 January, they're going up. So I thought maybe I missed the vote.
No,
We can
they're,
go to continue to waive them.
That would be my suggestion. It's extended.
you can remember, you can extend the moratorium, you can get rid of traffic impact fees altogether.
But you didn't mention that. You were just saying
Yep.
how they're going up on 1 January. The decision had been made. I thought maybe I missed something.
No, you were presented with the new, you were presented with the 2016 study, and you needed to decide whether or not you were going to accept that, accept this, and
And what? We never did anything?
you decided to extend the moratorium until December 1st, and then allow the traffic impact fees to begin again.
We took a vote and decided that?
Yes, sir, you did.
Then
And
we won't, maybe we don't want to do that then.
yeah, well, when you realize that in your 2009, The only thing you're supposed to spend those fees on are what's in the capital improvements of the adopted capital improvements plan, which is reflected on table 5 of that memorandum. Now, the conversation with how the county does it, they do mitigation for, like, let's take Publix again, for the improvements along Airport Road at that point in time. Instead of a dedicated fee, they funded the improvements of that roadway.
Mr. President, point of order, please. Can we have this in a workshop, since that's,
Sorry, can you extend your workshop to include the
Yeah, that's
discussion
what
of
we-
that?
Mr. President, I know we can't vote on anything, but,
Yeah.
I'd like for us in our next meeting to, look at, extend that moratorium.
Yeah, because I think that maybe we got to 31 December, and then somehow we just kind of dropped it. We need to look at whether we want to go beyond that or not.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do that in the workshop. Mr. Cox, you have something?
Yeah, are we never gonna impose a traffic impact
Well,
fee?
no, we just said you're
This
not.
schedule is from
That's workshop discussion, Mr.
2009.
Yes.
Some businesses are getting in a free ride, a double or triple free ride.
Mr. Cox, that's the reason it would be very good if we were allowed to mitigate the improvements of the actual development and how it's impacting the current area. If they are on highway, one of our roadways,
President, same point of order.
that would be it.
I agree, Mr. Hayes. What we need to do is, we have a lot of issues here, so let's save them for the workshop.
Can we extend the workshop from the one question to the evaluation of the other? As it stands now, you're gonna, you've voted, you have a consensus for a workshop that's gonna answer one question.
And that's, we want to piggyback with the county and state or not. That's the question. Then the second question would be if we want to have a moratorium.
If we wanna have a
Okay.
moratorium, or if you,
Consensus to add that to the workshop.
Add the moratorium to it.
Mr. Hayes?
Mr. President, when's the workshop scheduled?
Oh, we don't know yet.
It has to be before 31st.
Yes.
Mr. President,
I'm not on board with that.
question.
Okay, so Mr. Cox is not on board with having a workshop.
For the workshop, to understand that, but for the moratorium, we could extend that in a regular meeting, right?
Meeting, yeah.
We wouldn't have to wait till a workshop, then we have a workshop after. But what happens if we don't have a meeting before 31st, it goes into effect?
it will go into effect, because that's what, when
Moratorium
the
expired.
moratorium expired on December.
So yeah.
I need I gotta have 2 meetings to pass an ordinance. I gotta have 2 meetings.
You
Oh,
gotta have
special
10 days notice.
10 days notice, yes.
Mr. Whitten, if I just interject something here. We have the first reading of just a short extension until we can have a workshop on December 11th. The next meeting is January 9th. I mean, how many developers are we gonna get between January 1st and January 9th that we couldn't hold off until after we do the second reading of the ordinance?
Well, it says you cannot affect anybody that's already submitted. So if they come in and submit January 3rd, they will be charged traffic impact fees.
Tell them to come
Even
back-
though they're,
tell them to come back on the 10th.
well, I can do that.
Or
So,
come in before the 31st, then we can't impose it if they come in before the 31st.
Good point, Mr. President.
oh,
Good
yes,
point.
they must be they must be ready to have a permit.
That's, I mean, you're talking 9 days, so I don't think it's. And then have a workshop to discuss the mitigation and this other stuff after the moratorium.
Let's look at a date on the workshop though, because we have to get in the Christmas spirit here. Yes, Mr. Cox.
Yeah, one clarification. I was for a future workshop on the specific item Teresa discussed. I wasn't for extending this moratorium like forever. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. We set a date for the workshop.
I'm sorry, I did not bring my calendar with me this time, gentlemen. I usually have it, but I don't.
We were talking about having it in December or?
She's got a
January?
calendar in the front here. What's going on?
Back to workshop, we can have it in December.
But if the moratorium's still in place, then the workshop's kind of, if the moratorium goes away, we'd still have to do the ordinance to extend the moratorium until after you have the workshop. So that's still gonna happen, so it's not gonna be a,
Your dates in December are December 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th are your Mondays.
I'm not meeting on Christmas. I'll tell you that right now.
11th is a council meeting.
And the 11th is the
11th, we
council
already have a
meeting.
meeting. 4th, we have a CRA meeting.
The thing you gotta do is quickly is, if you wanna extend the moratorium, you've got to get an ordinance, and you've gotta get it passed on first reading, and then you gotta advertise it, passed on
Exactly.
second.
Right. And we're saying we could do it if we did it, if that's what we choose to do. We'd have the meeting on the 11th of December and a meeting on the 9th of January. And so it'd be 8 days that would be in effect if anybody put in for it.
The 9th of January is a Tuesday.
Well,
So are you talking about having it at the council meeting?
Not
Okay,
the
on that.
workshop, the second reading of the ordinance.
Tuesdays is not gonna be good for me if it happens.
What's that?
I may have a school board meeting.
no, it's not a Tuesday. I just come up with that day because
I think
that's the date that the city clerk gave me.
it's the 8th, it's the regular council.
If it's the
meeting.
8th.
So you're only talking 8, you're talking 6, we're talking 4 working days. 5 working days.
Okay, so 11 December and 8 January.
Yeah. So it's only 4
We'll have
working.
2 meetings if that's what we want to do.
4 working days before somebody enters.
And then the workshop needs to be,
The workshop is going to be to discuss the moratorium, or you're discussing the actual traffic again?
what I'm hearing from my compatriots is they want to act on the decision on the moratorium on the 11th, the moratorium on 11th December and 8 January. The workshop would be for this question with the county and state.
Okay.
So
How long,
She needs to know how long.
I need to know how long the moratorium is going to be so we can draft the ordinance.
what have we done in the past?
We've done all sorts of amounts in the past. We've done 90 days, we've done,
6 months.
You can always repeat it.
Yeah, you had an impact fee in, back in 2009, I believe, that lasted for about 6 months. You haven't had one since.
Less than 3 years, actually.
it's
We
been,
last
I
we
could be
collected
incorrect
2012,
about that,
right?
but it didn't last for very long, and it's been off the table ever since. But this, the table that would be imposed on January 1 is the 2009 table.
yes, sir.
That's my point.
Okay. So how important is it on the workshop? How quickly that have to be done then to make the decision between the state and the county? If in fact we're taking action on 11 December, wouldn't it make that whole point moot? If we voted to have a moratorium, then there's no reason why we'd have to answer that question. Because it could never be imposed along with the county and the state.
Okay. When the waiver comes up, then it comes back again, and we've got the same unanswered question.
Oh, we'll have plenty of time for the workshop then.
Main thing you need to know is how long you want to extend it.
I need that, that's all I need to know is how long, what am I gonna put in this
Well, I
ordinance?
recommend 6 months.
That sounds good to me. How about you,
Sounds
Mr.
good, that sounds good to me.
Mr. Hayes, you want to comment?
Gentlemen, may I please remind you that if there's gonna be any alteration within your traffic impact fees, it's going to have to come back to the board at least by the 1st of April so that we can get it passed by July 31st. So if you waiver this for 6 months, you're wavering it past the chance for you to change. Is that what you want to do? Is that what I'm understanding?
Mr. President, like what she said, let's go 3 months.
Wait a minute, I think that would complicate things more, wouldn't it?
She said you have to have something done by April.
No, I need to introduce a new plan to you April 1st, no later than April 1st. I would love to introduce it in February.
I like as quick as possible, but I want to give ample time.
Yes, Mr. Cox.
No more
Yeah,
than.
as quick as possible would be no action, and this would be initiated on January 1, 2018. Let me give you a specific example. A major new business, a real nice business, the Fairfield Inn. What is it costing them? There's no hotel tax, there's no impact fee. They're nice.
Mhm. And they paid the Okaloosa County, and they paid the state roadway area, and they actually did mitigation work for Okaloosa County, which is what we would like to present to the board, which is seems to be a more fair than just simply impact fees, is to make them responsible for either an amount to be mitigated in their area, or such as with some of the improvements that's taking place on John King Road, they're improving an intersection down at the old Antioch Road. So it's not actually something that may be in their very vicinity. Okaloosa County spreads it out within their district of influence.
Specifically, what is the city getting?
She's got, y'all got two separate motels. She's talking about Hampton Inn on John King Road. You're talking about Fairfield Inn behind
Yes.
Ryan's. What we done with Fairfield Inn, we mitigated with them. Because we don't have the impact fees in place to charge them. Well, the improvements still have to be made. So what we done is, as Mr. Cook and I, we go in and say, look, this is what has to be done. So that Mirage Avenue is gonna be widened. We got them to give us some additional right-of-way, and we also got, Chick-fil-A to give us additional right-of-way so that can be widened, and it's gonna be improved all the way back down to Crossing Drive. And, they worked with us on that, and restriping, they paid for all the engineering, and they're paying for all the restriping and the new turn lane that's gonna go there. So that's what we've been doing. It's, rather than collecting traffic impact fees that are dedicated to something from 2009, improvements that's on that capital improvement list that aren't valid anymore. We've been mitigating with each new development like this and working out details with them to achieve the impacts they're making right now today when they start building on our right-of-way, right there in front of their new development, rather than it going into a pot and sitting there and us not being able to use it. Just like right now, we have $60,000 or $70,000 sitting in there that we hadn't been able to use because it's all dedicated to a segment of Highway 85 between Hospital Drive and Redstone Avenue right there. It's a little segment that it was paid by the hospital when they extended their building, and it's all has to be used right there in that area. So that's just an example, but we can discuss this in a future workshop, and I'm fine with the way what your decision is right now.
What we would like to do, as Mr. Steele's talking about, we would like to work our way completely away from impact fees and to the same type venue that Okaloosa County has, where you mitigate your expenses in the area that you're there. And it's truly based on need. Your existing traffic impact fees are not just for commercial development. Come January 1st, a single-family home which we are in a building boom now, would pay an additional $1,762 in fees. So it's not just a commercial, it's inundated right through all elements, the residential, the recreational, and the commercial. Whereas if you had the ability to work with the developer in developing that, you could apply that to the infrastructure that is being built and constructed at that time. But their consensus now is to bring you back an ordinance for December the 11th and for a second reading on January 8th for an extension of the moratorium for 90 days, 60 days.
I recommend 6 months, President.
Well, if you would, Teresa, explain to me the downside of that. I'm not sure I quite caught it. The downside of the 6 months.
The 6 months, if you're going to maintain the traffic impact fees.
Okay, if we're going.
If you're going to maintain traffic impact fees, in order to change them or readdress them to a different roadway, a different whatever, you're going to make changes there. The ordinance must be passed by July 31st, and then with an effective date of October the 1st.
And
So-
it requires a new assessment from an engineering firm.
Can't you pass an ordinance, reducing the moratorium in the future? If you set it for 6 months and you decide they could end it in 3 months, you can do that.
Yes.
They can do that, or
Exactly.
if you know that during this moratorium, we're going to present a counteroffer to you of a mitigation and a different avenue. So, I'm
Okay.
6,
6 months sound good?
Yes.
Up to.
Up to.
Bill, Mr. Cox?
Reluctantly, but do I have the floor?
Yeah, you got the floor.
Destin and Fort Walton Beach don't operate like that. Very specifically have impact fees.
a lot of municipalities do have impact fees.
And this old 2009 table was reasonable. I acknowledge the current table had some stiff figures there, but at any rate, it's.
Well, keep in mind, the capital improvements funds calculate those figures. Yeah, it's at your discretion as to what you approve in that calculation, what capital improvements projects you use that facilitate the amount of the traffic impact fees.
Okay.
It's,
One more point.
Yeah, you go.
Can we get some information on how Destin and Fort Walton Beach handles their impact fees?
for the workshop?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Back to the thorny question, when is the workshop? When is available? Is there an advantage to have it in December, or can we have it in January?
Not if you pass your moratorium.
That's what I'm thinking.
Do I dare ask, do you want it for the January's workshop time span? Hey, where's our calendar again? We'll give you a date.
Mr. President, why she's doing that, because I'm sort of confused right now. If we decide to do the moratorium,
Right.
we still have to have a workshop on that, or we just going to vote that in a meeting?
About that in meeting, the workshop is to decide whether we're going to continue to have impact fees on state and county property. When they have fees, are we gonna do that if we ever have
I'm
impact
good.
fees?
I'm on the
Yeah, that's the
moratorium.
one.
Yeah, I'm good now.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, now, the workshop time frame for January will be the 22nd is your, is your meeting. And you've got, you actually have the next meeting in February will be the 12th public meeting, so you actually have a span of 2 weeks in between the January 22nd workshop and the February 12th. So that means you have an extra week in there, should you wish to put this in a separate workshop. Or-
All right.
So, January 22nd?
Does that sound good, gentlemen?
Go for it.
Yep, consensus. 22nd of January, 2018.
Okay, now, we're going to have the data for the impact fees in relationship to Okaloosa County and the state, Florida DOT. We're also going to have information on Destin and Fort Walton.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Staff it.
Do you want the idea of the mitigation form at that particular time, or do we wait till later in the year?
Bring it on. That's just me, Mr. President. I want it all at one time.
We might
That's
as
just
well
me.
make it a gigantic workshop. Okay.
It's good?
Yeah.
Did you have, did we have? Okay.
Recap what we're gonna do, Mr. President.
At the workshop, we're going to get information so we can make a decision on the item 9 of one of these 3 choices, okay? And then we're gonna look at, what's the second thing we're gonna look at?
The impact fee in relationship with Okaloosa County and Florida FDOT.
Good.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh, is that the one?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I just said that one.
And
And
Destin and
Fort
Fort
Walton
Walton.
Beach. I thought there were 3 items. Okay, only 2.
Next line.
All right. Are we ready?
You all gonna remember all that, I already. I'm leaving.
All right. We move on to discussion on property maintenance code.
Mr. President, question. How long is this
Yes,
discussion right here probably gonna be? It's gonna be a long discussion?
Well, you know, remember at the beginning of the meeting, I said I had a discussion with Teresa that because our first presentation really went longer than we anticipated, that this was gonna be hard to get all this done in one meeting. And, so it's up to y'all if you want to
Mr. President, I like.
truck on. I know you wanna go home and get your,
You have a lot
he
of
needs
things
to
to do
drink
tomorrow.
for a colonoscopy tomorrow. He can't wait. He just can't wait.
Mr. President, that's public record.
It is now.
I'm sorry, I didn't know it was a state secret. I think we're all getting a bit giddy. Do we want to continue? But then we'd have to have
Mr.
another
President.
workshop.
I'd just like to request, if possible, pull item number 10 from our workshop.
Like a
And
table,
where would you
please.
like to place it, though?
At the next available place.
Definitely going on too long.
I agree with, Mr. Blocker. I think we need to table, I think this is gonna be about an hour long.
I think it's gonna be long,
Yeah.
but I don't know that we can
But
move
this
it
is
to
affecting,
January.
this is gonna affect, all our citizens in the city of Crestfield. We
Right,
can't rush
exactly.
on this.
Mr. Cox, you have an input for us, please?
Yes.
Send you the workshop that you got now on the 22nd, or whatever it is,
My comment
With
is
the
I'm,
impact fees.
January. Yeah.
I'm good to go with this document as presented.
I'm not, so.
I'm not either. We haven't discussed anything.
No.
I read it, and it's pretty good, but
We
there's
haven't
some
discussed
things that.
It's the regeneration of the code that you've seen a few weeks ago, for the property maintenance code. It's sort of a clarification of it.
Yeah, and
But,
I have some issues with it,
so
we
if
definitely need a workshop on it.
Yep.
Mr. President?
Because you wanna,
No, not because of that.
no, I'm saying.
I just think it's a
you
lot
said
of
we
things.
need a workshop.
Yeah, we need to discuss
I
this
agree.
and,
We need to discuss
so the public knows what's going on.
So,
They haven't read it, but we have. I have.
Yeah, and I would trust that it would take about 2 hours to go through it.
Yeah, I was
So-
anticipating something like that.
But I would like to do a brag on our code enforcement officers, just take you less
You
than
can
5
do that.
minutes. I can do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, from January 1st, 2017 to November 27th, I would like you to know that our officers have closed 951 cases. Of those, we've had 23 discarded appliance cases. We had 28 on our storage of campers. We had 26 unsafe structures. We had 319 trash and debris. We had 220 unoperable vehicles. And we had 301 dumping by the roadway solid waste violations. We have of those complaints, we had 119 anonymous complaints. We had 89 citizen complaints. We had the remainder of them, other than just sprinkled out in different areas, were proactive endeavors by our officers. Okay, they have completed 555 lien searches to a total of $17,545. We now have come to finalization of 485 Second Avenue. We actually have contracted for, and those are being taken down. Those were unsafe structures where we have chased the ownership since 2016. We have 3 unsafe structures that are on Walnut Street that are now contracted to be removed by a local contractor. And we have 5203 Whitehurst that now have the engineer contacted, the owner has contracted with an engineer for the repairs of that particular unsafe structure there where the slab, the support for the slab was actually deteriorating from the home, and it should begin the repairs December 10th of 2017. So I would like to say that my officers are actually doing above and beyond what would be expected of them, and they are utilizing it at all without having to bring any of the violations before the code board. So that means they are remedying the situation by working with the owners and the responsible parties for the improvements or the demolition of the property. Thank you, gentlemen.
Very good, thank you.
Sounds great.
Okay, this time, we open up the floor again to comments from the audience. Anybody from the audience like to address city council? Last call, in the audience. All right, and I am adjourning this workshop. Thank you all for coming.
Long workshop.